Wow. Thank you. The title of my talk today is Two Sides to Every Truth. And I really want to talk about that oak and that willow. But before I go there, in the car on the way up, Millie and I were talking about this talk title and what it meant to me. And I told her that I had printed this extensive list from the internet of times when there's two sides to every truth. And it became like a game. I would read her one, and then she would try and guess it, and then I'd tell her what the internet said was the other side of the coin. So I thought it might be fun to try a few of these on you. So I'll give you an example. For seek and ye shall find, that's truth, isn't it? Yep. Curiosity killed the cat. Okay. The more the merrier. Do you want to try that one? What would be the other truth, the opposite? The more the merrier. Two's company, three's a crowd. You guys are good at this. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Out of sight, out of mind. Oh, yeah. Many hands make light work. Too many cooks spoil the broth. And how about one more? Birds of a feather flock together. There you go. If you lie down with dogs, you get fleas. I think that works. They have opposites attract. Yeah, I think that works. So we know in collective consciousness in our culture there are many sides to truth, and that these truths have come about because we all live through different situations. What is true in one situation isn't necessarily true in the other. And before I go any further, I'm gonna, since I'm talking about truth, let's go to what Charles Fillmore says about truth, because it's so important to know the basic principle of truth is that the mind of each individual may be consciously unified with the divine mind through the indwelling Christ. We can, each one of us, through affirmative prayer, know what the truth is. So that's the principle. And in reality, when we're living our life, sometimes one truth applies, sometimes the other applies. Sometimes two people are in a discussion, maybe even an argument, and they each have a piece of the truth, or perhaps even the whole truth. So we know that we can download truth for ourselves, but there's also two sides to every little t truth. And so as we go through life, how is it that we know which one to apply? I mean, maybe your mom taught you something and it was the truth in your household, and now you're grown up, you have children of your own or grandchildren, and maybe you choose a different side of the truth. Well, that's wisdom. Wisdom is how we know which truth to apply in the current situation. And Jesus was a great master of wisdom. He taught in parables, and he had these pithy sayings that just made you like, whoa, that was good. And he taught a great deal about compassion. What I'm going to talk about today is compassion and compassionate communication. And quite a bit of what I'm speaking about today comes from Robert Brummett's book, Living Originally. And I just have to say something about this. Robert was one of my teachers at Unity Institute, and as I was reading this book, I could hear his voice in my head, and many of the things that I was reading were things that he had taught me in class. And so it was really difficult for me to read the book. I mean, I knew what he was saying, but I had to read sentences over and over again, entire paragraphs, repeat and repeat. I've been working on this book for quite a while. Now, that's not to discourage you from the book. It's simply written. The issue was I was reading everything through what I already knew. And he's really presenting some original ways of looking at life, some original practices, a different way, practices that have been around a long time, but original ways to look at these practices in our life. And so I remembered beginner's mind, which is a Buddhist practice of putting on that mind of a beginner. And then when I went to read the book, as though I didn't know anything, it was the wisdom was much clearer to me. So I'm going to encourage you today, as I begin to talk about compassion and compassionate communication, to put on beginner's mind, because I'm guessing that some of you know quite a bit about that already. So as we put on beginner's mind, we empty ourselves of everything we've learned already, and we become like the student going to the master for the first time. So back to Jesus. Jesus was known for compassion. In the parable of the prodigal son, the young man comes home and the generous father showers him with compassion. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, it is the Good Samaritan who demonstrates compassion to the injured man on the side of the road. And in Matthew chapter 9, verses 35 through 38, we have a verse that tells about Jesus' compassion and includes some advice about what we are to do. Then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and curing every disease and every sickness. That's demonstrating compassion. Curing disease and sickness is truly a demonstration. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, okay, now this is one of those pithy sayings that you gotta, whoa. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore ask the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, ask the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. Now, Jesus is probably looking at fields that are laden with grain, but he's not talking about that kind of harvest. The crowds are the harvest. The crowds that are looking for the spiritual nourishment that he has to offer. The crowds that are harassed and helpless are looking for the wisdom and compassion that he has to give. And he says, ask the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into the harvest, into the crowds. We are called to go out into the fields, to go out into the harvest, to deliver the good news. And as you can imagine, in a traditional church, this sounds a lot like evangelism and go out and spread the gospel. But you know what? In Unity, we have a gospel too. We have a gospel of love. And if you hear anything today that sounds like good news to you, I hope that you will tell your neighbor. I hope that you will tell your friend, you know what I heard at church on Sunday? I heard this thing, and it's really practical. And you know, you wouldn't even maybe imagine that you'd hear it at church, but it really works. And I wonder if you want to know more about this. Honestly, if somebody hadn't told me about Unity, I wouldn't be here today. So we can take that proclamation to go out into the harvest, and we can deliver the good news too, the good news of our gospel of love. And I think that what Jesus was saying, and I think this is a fair interpretation, be compassionate. It says right there, Jesus was compassionate. We know that from the teachings. We are called to be compassionate in every part of our life. Now, Millie sang us a song about someone who was in an argument and who wanted to stand tall and straight like an oak tree. And you know, that's kind of like standing like our masculine side. We know we're right, and we want to stand firm, not let anybody attack us. We're there. And then she spoke about bending like a willow, which is really more of our divine feminine side. We each one of us have a masculine and a feminine side inside of us. It's part of our makeup. In Genesis, God made humankind in his own image, male and female. He created them. And we each one have those aspects within us. And two sides of one truth. Sometimes we need to stand tall like an oak tree. We need that masculine side of us. If this is the 4th of July Independence Weekend, and we celebrate our country, and we celebrate the fact that we are patriotic. We care about our country. And when called to defend our country, I hope that we speak out in ways that show that we're willing to stand tall like an oak tree. If we need to protect our family, if there's someone in the family system that's harming children, we want to stand up to that. We want to deliver that masculine side. And then there's other times that we need to be able to call upon that feminine side. We need to be able to bend. Even in some of those situations I already mentioned, sometimes we need to be able to bend, kind of like in the Matrix where he misses the bullet, you know? And let the trouble, let the problem flow over us. Again, the question is how to know which one to choose. And even more than that, in a situation where we know the best thing for us to do is bend, that's when sometimes we really get stuck in it, right? I mean, we are in the throes of something before we know it. Some emotion has gotten triggered. And even if we know that what we really want to do is bend, we just don't have the wherewithal to do that. It's times like that, I don't know about you, but I would love it if there was a magic, a hand. I mean, I know what I'm saying here, people. I'm not going to talk about that God, but oh my goodness, if there was a hand that would come down from the sky and wave a magic wand over me when I am in the midst of that emotionality and the throes, the grip of that masculine, I am right and I'm going to prove it. I would love to have that magic wand, wouldn't you? Is that something that would really work for you? Not that outside God thing, but that big magic wand. Well, I'd like to suggest that there is a magic wand. And it is a thought that we can hold in mind all the time. And it will serve us in so many ways. You know, today's daily word was about holding a thought in mind. It's one of our truths in unity, that we create the world that we live in by the thoughts that we hold. There's a thought that I think we can hold that will help us so that when we're standing tall like an oak tree and we know we want to bend and we just can't get to it, that will help us. And it's really simple. It's very short. And here's what it is. I seek transformation. When I put transformation above everything else and I continue to tell myself, I seek transformation, over time, that seeps into my mind and it seeps into my relationships. My relationships are mirrors being held up to me so that I can see parts of myself that I'm blind to. And when I'm willing to seek transformation in every situation, I can transform anything going on into something that serves me. if it's boring, if it's overwhelming, if it's emotional, if I'm seeking transformation, I can convert that into something that serves my highest good. I seek transformation. Maybe you're willing to start practicing that today. I'm going to say it again, and if you want to start practicing it, you can say it with me. I seek transformation. So see, what happens is in the throes of that argument, this becomes something where I can look at what's going on differently. My husband Tom and I, we do pretty well at compassionate communication. But the other day I went to him and I truly thought I was just giving him some facts. I truly thought that we had a difference, a little miscommunication, and I thought, give him the facts, he'll get it, we can move on down the road. Well, it didn't work out that way. And the next thing I knew, I was having emotions came up. I'd gotten triggered. Actually, I felt hurt. I thought this was just a little thing, and it was. And because I have been for quite a while telling myself, I seek transformation, in the moment, I was actually able to hear something that he was saying differently than I would have heard it otherwise. I was just about ready to jump in on him because he was saying an old tape I'd heard many times before, when all of a sudden, because I was thinking transformation, I was really having to think hard. This was good because it was occupying my mind. Instead of me thinking about what I was going to say next, I was starting to think about, okay, how can I make this transformative for me? But in the meantime, he was making the regular tape, but he kept going and said something new I'd never heard from him before. Now, if I had done the old thing, I would have just bulldozed right over that. And I was able to hear something new, take it into myself, see what the truth was for me, and it was not only resolved the problem that we had, but actually took us to a higher level. Took the whole relationship to a level that we now recognize that all he wants is for me to be happy. And all I want is for him to be awake. And once I realized that, it sounds really good, but we each realized that that's what we wanted. That wasn't necessarily what the other person was working on. And so it was truly a beautiful thing. I seek transformation. And as we do that, we can bend like the willow. It's an opportunity. And it applies in so many areas of our life. But what was required was listening. Listening to what he was saying and hearing it in a new way. And when we look at compassion and compassionate communication, that's one of the key elements. It's not so much what we say, it's first, how do we hear? If we hear without judgment, we're more likely to get to the heart of the matter, because truly there are two sides to every truth. One of the things that works with this idea of I seek transformation is in Millie's song. She talked about recurring thoughts harden into clay. And it gets us out of habitual thinking. These are just little steps that we can take towards our own self-transformation. And the payoff of self-transformation is a greater sense of purpose in our lives and a greater sense of vision. It's a huge payoff. We're going through life just like this, and even if everything's going fine, it's just right here. And there's always a whole nother level of life for us to get to. So when we start with the little, tiny, simple, but profound thought of I seek transformation, we can become more open to listening and even more open to deep listening which is where we're able to listen to the other person with our ears, but actually also with our hearts, and to begin to put ourselves into their life and understand more deeply what they're feeling in addition to what we're feeling. If we're going to be compassionate people to the harvest, to the crowds, or simply in our own life, if we seek transformation, another skill, we've talked about listening, another skill is speaking. And there's an Arab proverb that says that there are 3 gatekeepers to the tongue. And that means that anything that we speak has to go through these 3 gatekeepers first. The 3 gatekeepers are, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? So let's look at the first one. Is it true? Well, if it's true, great. It gets to escape. But if it isn't true, this is where telling myself I seek transformation serves me. Why is it that I want to say something that might not be true? What's my motivation? Am I fearful? Am I angry? Am I trying to hide something about myself in my shadow? Why is it that I feel the need to say something that's not true? Again, I seek transformation. The second let's say we get through the first gatekeeper. It's true. Is it kind? Now, kind doesn't mean polite or politically correct. Kind means generously hearted, appreciation for the other person. And when you start to think about whether something is kind or not, the first question that comes up very often is, well, how can I say something that's kind if I'm really being honest? If it got through the first gatekeeper and it's honest, and it's kind, okay, I don't know. Well, the key is not how to be honest and be kind, but how to be kind and be honest. Be kind in our honesty, and this takes practice. We have to work at that. We might even have to say, hold on, honey, hold on, dear one, hold on, child, just a moment, time out. You know, mommy needs a time out too. Let me think here a second. Because if we're going to say something that could be the least bit hurtful, isn't it better if we could take our time first? So is it honest? Is it true? And the third gatekeeper is it necessary? Is it necessary? And when we start looking at is it necessary, we learn that there's a lot of things that we say in our life that are honest and are kind. They're not unkind, but they're not really necessary. Now, if I feel like I have to not say anything, if I'm in a group and I want to not say anything unnecessary, you know, it got through the first 2 gatekeepers, but, you know, I'm not sure if it's necessary, and you find yourself not saying anything, becoming like a wallflower, you might want to look at your motivation for that. Am I really that uninteresting? Maybe I want to get a magazine subscription, or I want to read a new book. Probably not true. You probably aren't uninteresting. It's just probably that you're taking this to heart so seriously that you're, again, blocking your own transformation. Take a risk. You know, one of the things about this is we can reflect on what we've done and we can learn from that. So the 3 gatekeepers, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? This leads us to right speech and elevates our life to one of compassion, where we can demonstrate compassion for other people. And one of the things that I hear about this is, Well, yeah, but then I'm not really being myself. I'm one of those people that just likes to let everything be real. You know, I just want to be real with people. How is it that you want me to, okay, I got to think about listening, and now I got to think about how I speak, and how is it that I can be real with people? Well, again, I go back to Millie's song where she talks about repeated patterns becoming hardened clay. The real is just habits. The authentic is who we really are. And when we do this practice of seeking transformation, we get glimpses into who we really are. We start to see with new eyes our authentic self. We become the laborers in the field. We become compassionate not only to ourselves, but to others. This is a practice that takes time. Robert Brummett suggests that you spend 30 days just with this one practice before you move on to anything else in the book. I encourage you. I invite you. I hope that you take this to heart and begin with the baby step of telling yourself repeatedly, I seek transformation, and move in using that skill to guide you through the skill of compassionate communication and right speech. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? I know you can do this. I know that there's a good chance that you won't even get outside of this building before you have an opportunity to reflect upon the 3 gatekeepers. And I bet that you will find every time that there is transformation, a new level of living, a new vision for your life, right in the palm of your hands. God bless you.